Hello and welcome to the Rugby chat brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and I just realised I was going into my old intro and I was going to make this really quick and just go straight into the questions. So, joining me this evening is Ashwin and Herman. How are you doing, sirs?
Doing fine.
There we go. So, push, zoom in, and all of that kind of thing.
How's that for enthusiasts?
So, some of the stuff we're going to be talking about, let's run through the 5 questions first, actually. Well, first off, we'll talk about what was your moment of the weekend of international rugby. Then we'll have a chat about Gatland, who became the most, capped international coach of all time, passing Graham Henry at the weekend. We'll then ask, is World Rugby doing a good job? Because people seem to be moaning every weekend. Then we'll have a chat about Argentina and their coach resigning because of the number of losses they've had. And finally, if we have time, is the whole idea of rugby to cheat? That's going to be our last question. So there you go, folks. That's what we're going to talk about this weekend. Or this weekend? No, it's a Tuesday. Oh, dearie me. Here I'm trying to speed things up.
It's a long week already. It's okay. It's a long week already.
It is a long week.
It's like we've had 5 days.
I guess, Paul, you're like all up in this World Cup fever in Russia, so every day is a weekend for you right now, you know. And with the England win yesterday, happy days.
England lost. Okay, we saw that the weekend. Didn't win anything. Jeez.
It's just going to be.
Well, aren't they just hunting down gay people and locking them up and things? I mean, isn't that? It's just it's a disgrace they've been allowed to have such a to normalise their society by hosting such a tournament. It's all politics, I tell you. There's nothing sporting about it at all.
No one cares in England today.
And that's the problem, you see. Anyway, as I have now been totally sidetracked by all of that, Herman, what was your moment of the rugby weekend? Not so much the soccer.
Damn. Well, it was a pretty good weekend, I would say. I didn't see it all live, but I have catched up, so I've seen it all now. And still the highlight will have to be that the Irish did make a serious statement that they are indeed the number 2 side in the world. And the way they did it, the performance, even if the scoreboard was pretty close, I thought they were very convincing because obviously you will always see in the Australian media and some Australian fans they are like the world champion when it comes to bashing their own boys. And the ref, of course, he was part of some Australian fans. That's not beyond them. They rain the ref because we lost against Ireland. But let's leave it there. But yeah, so to see this big statement from Ireland that they are real, they are in the business, and it was also positive to see them do it against what I think was a pretty good Wallabies performance. That was Ireland at the best, and the Wallabies could live with them. So good signs for both teams.
Yeah, I mean, having Sexton back is always a big thing for them. There's someone who can lead them around the park and all of that kind of stuff, which is great to see. So yeah, that's having their best players back made a big difference for them, and so that always makes that's always. And it's amazing how one player can give everyone the nice security blanket to do what they want to do well and not have to worry about what else is going on. And that kind of thing, which I think is also part of that. Interestingly enough, because I'm head off down a tangent already, but I remember listening to Brian Moore talking about the difference between club rugby and international rugby. And at club rugby, as an international player, you're trying to make up for the players around you who aren't quite as good as you. Whereas at international level, you just have to concentrate on your job because everyone else is good around you and they can do their jobs. You don't have to do their job as well. Which is a different style, a different way of playing for everyone apart from Parisi, I think, who just tries to do everything himself at international level. Ashwin, what was your moment of the weekend?
Oh, look, it has to be the red card, doesn't it? It gives all those All Blacks haters around the world something to really focus on and get angry.
Oh dear.
This is like the venom comes out, and this is like yes. No, but seriously, that's seriously. There's a couple of highlights. Obviously the Ireland Australia game was pretty good. I felt, I have to be honest, after hard day for me on Saturday, so I actually didn't see the whole game. I had to watch it later. But definitely a good game. And then the other thing that I haven't seen it, but I'd like to, and I know that the Scotland team wasn't strong, but USA beating Scotland.
Yeah, no, that was a massive result. Now, I do have a bone of contention here, though, because everyone's saying that this is the first time.
You have to hold up your bone.
I need a bone, don't you? Yeah, that's right. I need a bone.
You need a bone contention. So anyway, tell us about bone contention.
So, bone of contention. Everyone's saying that this, a bit like everyone was saying that it was the first ever coloured South African captain. It wasn't. It was the first ever coloured South African captain starting at the other weekend. Everyone's been saying this is the first ever Tier 1 scalp by the USA. But what about 1926 when they beat France? It's been a long time. I agree.
Olympic gold medal.
Exactly. They are the reigning Olympic champions at 15s, having beaten France twice. I mean, they've won it twice, so that was 1920 and 1926. So this is hardly the first ever Tier 1 scalp. It has been a bit of a gap between them. I agree. There aren't many people who were at that game who are available today to comment on how they played. But
that's a really good point.
Jack Darby, 1926 is irrelevant. Oh, gee, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you're coming from, you don't know where you're going.
We can't hear you, Herman. We can't hear you.
He's trying to talk and he's just. Oh dear me. Yeah, we can't hear Herman, who's chuntering away, giving me all sorts of comments. But never mind.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah, you're back. I reckon it's your dodgy port again.
Okay, now I was saying you were in your element, Paul, when you can tell that kind of stats. That's like your golden zone.
Come on, like, territorial advantage back in 1926.
Sorry?
For the podcaster, Paul looked like a big fat cat who just swallowed a big rat, when he goes about telling stats like that.
The cat got the cream. Absolutely. So, tiers didn't exist back then, all that kind of stuff. So, no, massive win for the USA, even if it did come down to a missed conversion right at the death. It was a 1-point win, but hey, what we've already seen is the improvements brought about by Major League Rugby in the fact that they didn't fade away like they have done in so many other years. The fact that the players now are 100% professionals, so they actually get to train all week. And they're not just training twice a week and then once at weekends, like your amateurs do, or semi-professionals do. So having that ability to train all week, their fitness was so much better, and that was a big thing.
One of the comments that was always made, a regular comment that was made before rugby went professional is like, be careful what you wish for. With rugby going professional, obviously at that time there were a lot of rugby players getting poached for professional teams of other codes, and it's like, be careful what you wish for, because if rugby goes professional, America will just pick up the game and beat the world, sort of thing, and maybe it's coming to fruition.
No, they're not. I mean, Paul has given me like a shut up about the World Cup in soccer, but use soccer as an example. Where are the Americans? Are they in the World Cup in soccer right now? No, they're not. Do they have like the most resources and players in soccer right now? Yes, they do. It will take a long time.
It will take time. There's no two ways about it. Jack's asking how many of the USA squad play in Major League Rugby. About half of them do. And then you've got players like Sammy Manoa, who play at Toulon, AJ McGinty at Sale Sharks, to name a couple, who play in Europe for very professional players. But I think the entire squad now is full-time professional, with about half of them playing in Europe and half of them playing in Major League Rugby in the USA.
Look, I mean, on a serious note, I mean, at least, as I said, to compete against the the top four, let's call them, in terms of the rankings, obviously still, it could be a long time before that happens. But for them to get competitive, and then obviously in those nations around them, and to have good matches, good quality matches, it's good news. And I mean, like, if we can see the likes of Georgia also in Europe, sort of that European circles, growing and strengthening, it's good to get some more quality teams putting some quality games together. Obviously, still battling against the top four, or top six nations, but you're still going to get to see some good quality games happening amongst teams of equal level, rather than really, if we go back when we used to see those teams around those lower levels, the quality of the game wasn't exactly great, the execution of the skills wasn't great. So anything to see the quality actually rise at the lower levels is great.
Yes, I agree. And I also think we've seen this trend in pretty much every World Cup, that the minors are getting closer, and I have no doubt they're going to get even closer in the next World Cup in Japan. We will see an even more competitive competitive World Cup with very few blow-up scores. That's my prediction already now.
Yeah, a couple of questions in the chat. So first, Hugh, who we've had does post-match analysis, some games with me, asking what role have sevens played in raising the profile of 15s in the USA, and Christian asking I wonder how Perry Baker would go in the 15s. I guess a similar sort of question. Clearly, sevens and the Olympics has raised awareness of rugby in the USA massively, but that's more on the sevens side than the 15s side. And I think we're seeing that still. I mean, look at the ticket sales for Wales, South Africa in Washington, D.C. weren't great. The ticket sales for these the USA internationals during this window, I think, have been probably decent, but not great. It's not really picked up massively on that side of things yet. I think there's still a long way to go. How would Perry Baker go in 15s? I think he would struggle, just like Carlin Isles did, for example. Carlin Isles struggled in the 15s game, went over to Scotland, played with Glasgow, I think it was, for a short while, but never cracked it in their team. So I think Perry Baker, similarly, without the experience, would take a while to settle in. He would have to put on more weight. There's no way that physique would handle coming up against someone like Julian Surveyor, for example. Let's be honest, he would get hurt pretty early doors.
Are you saying we're going to have to international weight restricted rugby? Under 85s.
Yeah, skinny white guy league. Yeah, I've got a chance. No,
Look, I mean, so what are you saying? Like someone like a Perry Baker, Carlin Isles, they need to have a good year and a half of good, consistent rugby at sort of possibly like a lowerish level to understand that 15s to be able to become effective at it? Or do you think that really it's just a total long shot for them?
I think it's a long shot for them, to be honest. Why are Carlin Isles and Perry Bakers so successful? Because they get space and they run around people, essentially. That's now there's more than straight line speed to their games. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they got some great footwork as well. They'll also chase down players and tackle. So it's not just purely give them a ball with half the pitch and try and run around somebody, but a lot of their game is that. And you just never get that amount of space in rugby unless you're Johnny May against South Africa in the first 10 minutes of a game.
No, well, the reason I put that out there is that, I mean, obviously we've seen a few, classic cases for, say, All Blacks fans is like your Brad Thorne, your Sonny Bills, coming back from league and coming to rugby, and it did actually take them a couple of years to understand the game, understand their positions, and to become effective in the 15-man game. So that's why I was sort of putting it out there, whether they just need to have, possibly like I think was it Jack mentioned, sort of like at a Mitre 10 Cup level type, that sort of level of rugby, where it gives them the basics and grounding and the ability to learn the game of 15 to, and as I said, and obviously bulk up a bit because there's going to be a bit more heavier hitting.
Yeah, but they come from a a ball handling background that both those players. They actually have to catch a ball and run with it. And in Sonny Bill Williams' case, pass it. Brad Thorne possibly didn't pass it that often. Perhaps he just trucked it up and then rolled it between his legs. Whereas coming from a sprinting background, which is what Colin Arles came from, there's no ball handling skills at all. It's just being an athlete and that sort of things. Interesting. Brent goes, sleeping giant my foot. Georgia are more of a sleeping giant than the US. See how competitive the under-20 side was. Where was the US under-20s? Okay, so Georgia have got a decent under-20 side. They've managed to play now in the under-20s Champions Cup or whatever it's called, World Cup. Effectively,
but they have a Champions Trophy for the one below them.
There we go. But they've been in that one now for the past 2 years and survived. Japan have got relegated, came up and will be relegated this season. The USA played Canada and lost out last year. And Canada went to the trophy level, the level beneath them. And Canada didn't get out of that. And the USA and Canada just played again recently on under-20s to qualify for next year's.
Canada won, so Canada
won that as well. Yes, so yeah, sure. At under-20s, the USA are struggling a little bit. That's true. But Georgia, let's remember, have never ever beaten a Tier 1 team. The USA have.
Unlike the US, 1926 or 1920, 26, and now 2018.
So, but that's a little bit. But how many Tier 1 teams have Georgia played for?
Oh, several, including Italy, recently, who lost to Japan. So,
Japan is not a Tier 1 nation.
No, Japan beat Italy.
But I mean, how many times Georgia doesn't play Tier 1 nations very often?
No, but neither does the USA. They
played them way more times than Georgia has.
They both generally get one game in November, and that's pretty much. And USA will maybe get an extra one in June, which they normally lose. Anyway, I still think
Georgia never get to play Tier 1 nations at home. That's another one for you.
True, they don't get to play them at home. They will do.
It's 2020 playing away.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but it's just Georgia is doing pretty good.
Yes, Georgia. I think Japan are probably the outside the Pacific Islands, which it's a bit difficult, but Japan, I think, are the top tier 2 nation.
I agree with that.
Followed by Georgia, and then it's a bit unknown beneath that kind of level.
If Fiji get the finances, they will be moved up.
Oh, I mean, Fiji
if they get the finances.
Fiji have just beaten Georgia, so I think you've got Fiji, Tonga in that kind of mix. Samoa seems to have slipped away a little bit recently.
I wouldn't put Tonga and Samoa in that mix at all because they're going to fall heavily in the next 10 years because right now they survive massively on the grandparent rule that makes they have a lot of Kiwis can play there. But soon with a lot of Tongans and Samoans in New Zealand going to be third generations and they're not going to be available for selection anymore for Tonga and Samoa and they're going to go down quick then.
That's interesting. Actually, I'll just pick up on that point by Herman. And it's just interesting because obviously the All Blacks get hammered for having Pacific Islanders, not New Zealanders playing on their team, which is absolute rubbish. But the reality is what Herman's alluded to is the fact is that the Samoans and Tongans actually have a lot of New Zealanders playing on their team through grandparents' rule. So it's actually the reverse that's been happening. Yeah. Now, obviously there are your Waisaki Naholos who come over here from schooling at, what we, I still call fifth form level. But it's sort of like about that 15-year-old level, and then they've sort of stayed here.
You mean when you're poaching teenagers? Damn.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that actually. I mean, that's another topic. We're digressing totally. No, but it astounds me that a schoolboy level that they'll go over and cherry pick some kids from out of the islands. It's just astounding. That hang on, where's your focus to teach kids how to read and write, or to go find rugby players in the islands?
Yeah. No, but
Absolutely.
overall, I think in the last World Cup, in the Samoan squad of 31 players, I thought it was like 18 or 19 were born in New Zealand.
Well, if you go and look at on DrivingMaul and search for rugby imports, you'll be able to get a full breakdown as to the number of foreign-born players in all of the squads, matchday squads. It's there. I'll actually search for myself. But
but we lost the track. But maybe like the ones who are like possible for promotion to Tier 1 are obviously, I agree with Paul, Japan is first in line. Georgia is on quality on the playing field. They are probably soon going to be ready pretty soon for promotion. Fiji, if we can get the finances in order. And then we have nations like Spain, Germany, United States, where it's more about they just need to get some quality on the field. As soon as they get that, they will be fast-tracked to Tier 1 status right away because there's just simply too much money to make that.
The problem with Germany, though, is that Germany has been a rich boys' plaything where he basically funded a team and also funded the German national team. He fell out with the union.
Yeah.
He fell out with the union. He stopped paying the national team. He's now that his team hasn't been allowed into the European Rugby Challenge Cup. He's basically now pulled all funding from German rugby, which means Samoa are going to walk into the Rugby World Cup with their 2 games against Germany. And German rugby is basically in a bit of a mess at the moment because they were funded by one person who's just pulled out. So just some figures from the last Rugby World Cup. Samoa had 13 players born overseas, and Tonga had 12. They were the two. They were the two most, the two highest number of overseas born players out of all the teams at the Rugby World Cup. And I guess one of the points is that that immigration of Pacific Island people to New Zealand, I don't think has stopped. I think it's still continuing. So it's not going to be something that they're not going to drop off a cliff as such. There are still people travelling, still emigrating to New Zealand. And there are still new first and second generation Kiwis being Pacific Island Kiwis being born.
Yeah, that will always continue. I mean,
the 70s and 60s was a big influx.
There was
massive,
a big wave coming there, and that's what you still see the result of now, basically in Samoan and Tongan rugby. Just like
the percentage coming over now is not anywhere near like that big influx from the 60s and 70s.
Fiji were well down the list. To be honest, they only had 3 players born overseas in comparison to, and a lot of their military dictatorship means that their travel into and their immigration into New Zealand is much less than it is for Samoa and Tonga as well. But we're heading off down into Pacific Island politics. Yeah, they're in an area that I don't know my backside.
We're never going to make it to Wazza-Gatland.
Well, we haven't even. We're 20 minutes in. We haven't made the second question yet. So, warning, folks. We're either going to go for about 3 hours, or we're not going to get to all 5 questions tonight.
Warning, Will Robinson. Warning.
Yes. So the the Fiji Jura joining the NRC has been a positive move for Fiji. Absolutely, it totally has been. And there's still lots of talk in the next Super Rugby expansion. And I know people will be throwing their arms up in horror at my suggestion about the expansion. That there is a good chance that there will be a Super Rugby expansion into Fiji in 2020 or 2021, I think it is.
21.
The great to see that Christopher, who said he was at the Japan-Italy game and is hopefully going to go to the Japan-Georgia game, and is saying how wonderful that was, an event mirroring Herman's comments from last week, saying it was like watching a Tier 1 standard performance and also atmosphere, which is all great to see. Where's Catalonia? It's part of Spain. We're not going to go down that kind of rabbit hole.
We're not going to talk about Macedonia either.
We should talk about the Basque region too to make it really interesting. I mean, the Basque county could actually have a pretty good rugby union team if we are allowed to pick all the French guys.
See, that's very true. When Solo just says, I'm just about to take off on a 2-hour flight, so I hope to catch the end of the show in a couple of hours. Yes, maybe.
Yeah. We hang in for you, Baron Champ.
Hang in. We'll keep going.
Oh, dear me. Anyway, question 2. Oh, dear me. I can't believe we're so far in. So Gatland became the most, I've put capped international head coach at the weekend with his 104th test in charge, overtaking Graham Henry. What are your favourite memories of him, and where do you think he's going to go in the future?
Age before beauty. You start, Ash.
Cool. Throw me a hospital pass. I got crimes.
Now reverting back and saying your best memories of Warren Gatland are him playing hooker for Waikato.
Yeah.
Waikato. He was in the front row where Graham Purvis did the hand of God, but anyway, that's another story.
But Ash, have you seen Gatland play?
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
I'm that old, yeah.
So you're actually allowed to talk
early 90s.
You're allowed to talk memories.
Look, I suppose, the reality is that the pinnacle for Warren Gatland's coaching career, and I don't know if this is included in the 104 caps or not, is obviously with the Lions. And if you're Warren Gatland, you're going to hang your hat. It wasn't maybe a series win, but he didn't lose to the All Blacks, and he drew a series with the All Blacks as the coach of the Lions. And one thing you've got to remember...
Don't forget, he won a series for the Lions against Australia as well. So he's coached 2 tours, won 1, drawn 1. That's a pretty impressive record.
Impressive record as Lions. The biggest thing with the Lions is that, and every Lions coach, this has been the biggest struggle, is how do you bring 4 nations that normally go around hating each other together?
No. Let's rephrase this. 3 nations who hate 1.
That's very true. There's no hate between the Scottish and the Irish. You got it completely wrong. They love each other. They do.
Yeah. But I mean, so to bring a squad together 2 times, one to obviously overcome the Australians, and as we've discussed, it doesn't matter what state the Australian rugby team is, they put in a competitive team, 15, on the field for a test match generally. And if I remember back to that series, it was actually he had some good players to pick from as a play against in terms of an Australian squad. And then to draw against the All Blacks at home, which is a struggle in itself, to bring the team together, you'd say that'd be the highlight or pinnacle for Gatland, from my point of view.
Let's say Pete Gatland dropping Brian O'Driscoll for the third test in Australia was obviously upset a lot of Irish people at the very least, and then to change his entire game plan and play with 2 playmakers in New Zealand after the so-called Warren Ball that he's so famous for so many years. You've got to say that both those things are big pluses in the box. Herman, any kind of?
Yeah, but I like to reconnect to the Lions for a little bit there, because I wasn't overly confident or positive in Gatland when it comes to his pure rugby news before the Lions tour. I thought he was the perfect choice because he knew 100% how to handle touring in New Zealand and don't get into pretty much every single trap where Sir Clive Woodward got stuck in when he was there 12 years before, because it was just a horror show how you can pretty much make all the mistakes it's possible to make, and was took a lot of made Lions pretty likable. I mean, there were a lot of hype in New Zealand that you want to get fired up and don't like his Lions team, but he handled that really well to take a lot of the air and or at least the hot air out of that. So was very, very respectful with everything we did towards everything Kiwi. It wasn't nothing even close to a scandal or a bad word for 5 weeks in New Zealand. 40 grown-up men were rugby players. That's some feat. Yeah. Because there were eyes on them. We don't make no mistakes about that. People were watching them, what they were doing. And from a more rugby sense, he also proved me a little bit wrong about how much he is the credit for that. But he's the head coach. The credit goes to him, whether we like it or not. The Lions came to New Zealand and played some really, really good rugby. That's what I probably surprised most people. That if you look at the test series, the Lions tries are better than the Kiwi tries, like, which is unheard of.
Steady on. Steady on. Yes. Right, you can carry
They
away
were.
with it.
They scored better tries. They did. They did.
Can't see that on podcast, can they?
They can't see the podcast.
Just the Kiwi making a fool out of himself again. You all see it.
And I'll be honest. Whilst the original concept behind this was for a podcast, we have way more people who watch it on YouTube than actually listen to it on the podcast. But hey, we still love you, podcast listeners. Please do give us a review, 5 stars, and all that kind of stuff. Another great thing I think was, here's a guy who say Rugby Nouse. His very first team that he picked when he joined Wales had 14 players from the same province and 1 from somewhere else. And there's a guy who realises that combinations do work, and he then evolved from there, bringing in players. But let's say his first game, 14 players from the same from the Scarlets, I think from memory, plus 1 other, went through the first guy to win. What's we going to call it? Welsh Grand Slam for a long time as well. Won a couple of those. He's had some highs. But after win post Rugby World Cup, he's going to retire. He's going to resign from Welsh Rugby, move back to New Zealand, drink a couple of glasses of wine, and then look for his next coaching role. Where's he going to turn up?
We all know that.
Go on then, Herman. We know
There's only one spot open. There's only one. If he still harbors a dream about the All Blacks, there's only one qualification job to do. Fix and Gats, and the keys to the castle is yours. Fix the Blues, and I think all New Zealand will be ready.
Absolutely.
You can have the All Blacks. You can have the All Blacks, Warren. Sir Warren, it will be then.
No, that's it. I mean, you look at Jamie Joseph type scenario, right? When he turned up at the Highlanders and they were struggling, he struggled actually for the first 2 years. There was talk of him being dropped, and then he turns the team around and goes and wins a title with them. So if you want to put your name up in lights, the obvious one is to come back and take up a team that's underperforming and turn them around.
But what I could see an opening for him is because it seems we'll see Crusaders sits nicely in the driving seat again for another Super Rugby title, and they look good for the next couple of years too. But I mean, no guarantees they will win it, but they look very good, and it's already now. There are some big talk about Scotty Robertson, but there are other test teams looking at him already, so that could open up a Crusader spot.
Well, yeah, but it's sort of like, as you said, if you want to put your name up in lights, put your name ahead of everybody else, what do? You pick the worst performing team, you turn them around and say, look what I did.
Yeah. But I mean, if you want to coach in New Zealand, All Blacks is the finest, but I'd say the second best is the Crusaders.
I see what you, in terms of, what you want to go for. Yeah.
It used to be the Blues, but not anymore.
Yeah. You don't have to keep using them.
That was not necessary. That was not necessary, I know.
That was not cool.
So, a lot of comments in the chat saying that they don't want him back as All Blacks coach, and I think post Rugby World Cup we're going to see Fox take over as the All Blacks coach as Steve Hansen steps down, and I think
Grant Fox,
not Grant Fox. Sorry, who's
Foster?
Foster, sorry,
Foster.
blank.
Yeah, Foster.
That begins with F. Anyway, Foster.
Yeah,
sorry, Foster will. Dear me, Foster. Sorry, will take over, and I think Gatlin will probably pick up one of the Mitre 10 Cup teams after take, because that'll be about 6 months after the Rugby World Cup. The Mitre 10 Cup will start. He'll take the Mitre 10 Cup team, and then the season after, in sort of 2021, maybe looking at a Super Rugby franchise. And
It's never that straightforward when you're looking for a new job. I mean, you have to take some things on the bounce, and when all of a sudden people say we're going to have 6 months off, and all of a sudden the right job opportunity comes, and they, oh no, I didn't need any holiday at all. This was what I was dreaming about. I mean, I see where you're coming from, Paul, but to plan it like that perfectly years ahead, it rarely turns out that way. Not even for world-class rugby coaches.
Maybe not, but if you've got a Fiji Super Rugby franchise kicking off in 2021. And you have
that's worth holding out for.
And you have a Warren Gatland coming off his sabbatical after the Rugby World Cup. That wouldn't be a bad place for him to land. So there you go. You've heard it here first. Warren Gatland to coach the Fiji Super Rugby franchise that enters into Super Rugby in 2021. There's my prediction.
But here's sorry, I'm going to take this as a bounce. It's off topic, and I'm going to steal 2 minutes from the show. But what about if Steve Hansen steps down? What can he do next? Why should he step down? This is what if All Blacks keeps winning, I don't think he's going to step down. No way. He's going to be like Sir Alex Ferguson from the All Blacks. He's just going to stay there in like a boss position and so to make sure he have actually other guys running the team for him, and he just handle the media and the big pressure. He's perfect in this role, by the way, too. He's perfect in this role.
Because Steve Hansen's actually still fairly young. He's not actually. I mean, being a coach, it doesn't really matter anyway. But he's actually very young in terms of years. Obviously, in terms of coaching years, he's been around for a very long time. But it's interesting whether. I suppose that's one of the topics we can discuss for our All Black show, isn't it? In the future, is what's Steve Hansen going to do after the World Cup?
Yep, well, that's a cliffhanger.
He's 59 now, so he'll be 61. Or after the Rugby World Cup, or 60 after the Rugby World Cup, and as a teaser, one of the topics for an All Blacks edition as to what happens there.
For the All Blacks editions tomorrow, Paul, keep them like in the memory, don't in the future. Tomorrow, the All Blacks edition show tomorrow.
Okay, on the All Blacks edition tomorrow, we'll talk about that then. Ask for him to remind me. Jeez, I've already got the script for tomorrow lined up, but never mind, we'll change it.
We're in the media business. We have to take things on the fly here,
Oh, dearie me. I had something in my head and I've gone blank. That's not very good, is it? Oh, jeez. So anyway, so we'll talk about Steve Hansen tomorrow night on that kind of things. The other one actually in the chat is Joe Smith, apparently.
I feel like it.
Sorry? If you feel like it. It's all about you, Ashwin, don't worry. Joe Smith's obviously the other person who may be heading home after every World Cup as well. So that would be another interesting one. Graham Henry, as obviously could make a comeback. He's going to be assistant coach at the Auckland provincial side for the Mitre 10 Cup. Could he revive his? Could he? Does he want to get back into it now and have a last hurrah? You never know.
I want to share, how can I forget this? I heard like the best piece of rugby gossip yesterday with something I think will excite you both.
Listen up, people.
Guess one time who is rumored to thinking about picking up a referee career.
No.
The great Richie McCall is thinking about becoming a referee. It's true, folks. It's true, folks.
I would what everybody's doing at the breakdown.
Love that. I would love if he took up a referee career, because I think his feel for the game is second to none. He can read situations better than anyone. And the other thing I heard like several times, because before every season, I don't know if it's before the Super Rugby season or the All Black season, the players get to do the referee test, like lots of law questions, just how to, and he aces them every single time. He basically knows every single law already. I think he has a pretty good head start to become a good referee in front of pretty much everyone else alive.
Good. Definitely ahead of Justin Marshall, by the way, who at the weekend didn't even know the laws that got PJ Piranara sent off. By the way, we can't see you at the moment. So.
Yeah, so there's someone that needs some coaching.
So get back, maybe more in the centre of your screen.
Me.
Yeah. Smoking on screen is fine, by the way.
I'm having a cigarette. Yes, okay. I'm trying to hide it.
Smoking and drinking are allowed on the screen. I'm anti-smoking. I believe all smokers should be shot. But yeah, you're allowed to smoke on the screen. It's okay. Go on, Ashton.
Because there's no smoke on you.
I was just going to say That was an absolute shocker from TJ Perenara on the weekend. It's just like, what was he rolling the laws back, like 10 years or something? It's just like, and then he puts his hands up like oh, what did I do wrong? So maybe Richie could go in there as a technical laws consultant for the All Blacks. What's that? That should pay about $2.50 an hour.
It would be amazing to see Richie back as a coach, because let's be honest, as a referee, because you don't get paid much as a referee. The guy doesn't need the money. He would be doing it for the love of the game, and so it would be great to see him. It would be it'd be definitely amusing to see him initially, and we could then judge afterwards whether it'd be great or not great to actually see him do that.
But it makes kind of sense too, because I think all of us have followed Richie McCaw for a long time, and even our viewers and listeners have seen the documentaries with him and know a fair bit about his personality. I don't think we know him, but we know bits and parts of him. And he never, ever came through as a coach material. Never. And he's been pretty clear about that himself too, that it's not interesting. But on the same page, when you're just thinking as a referee, he comes through right away. Yes, that's a referee. I mean, he's an A student, He likes to do things perfect. He likes to challenge himself. And by God, is there a bigger challenge right now than referee rugby games?
Well, Mark says in the chat that no, Richie's doing an Adidas commercial as a referee, so maybe it's just an advertising thing.
No. This is from a good source down in the South Island.
But hey, would you want to be a referee? Because all you're going to get happen to you is getting thrown under a bus by the IRB anyway. So, and as
Arsene just takes us straight on to question 3.
Wow,
look at that segue. Let's just ruin it now.
Well, but you're ruining it by repeating it. Just go with the flow, Paul. Go with the flow. This is supposed to be a conversation.
Doing a good job, yes or no?
No.
No.
Okay.
No, hang on now. That's a no from me, Paul.
That's a yes from me, Ashwin. So I think they are, but go ahead, go on, boys. Tell me why World Rugby messing up?
Well, I think I started this one because I think it's the biggest problem World Rugby is they have to do like a big sit down and actually realize what are we expecting from our referees? Can we actually do the job we expect them to do? Is it even possible to do it? And I think the question to that is no. You need more eyes. You need more hands. It will hurt some of the fluidity of the game, but I also think if all the players know that they're going to be, most of the things going to be picked up on, they will be more hesitant to do it. I mean, this whole idea that you have, we have assistant referees too, but there is a main guy who's supposed to make the calls, and he's going to watch 30 players. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible.
So I'm going to take a slightly different tack on it, and I'm not going to look at a specific incident. I'm going to look at what is the role of World Rugby, or the IRB as I like to refer to them as. It's the management of the game across the globe is what their core function is. And when you look at it, so let's go back at the incidents that have occurred, and we're just focusing on refereeing incidents in the last 2 weeks. Hang on. Wasn't there some eligibility issue with some Rugby World Cup qualifying games? And it's like, oh, hang on, we'll wash our hands of that. That was because those sub-whatever committee group over here, they should... Hell no! It's a Rugby World Cup qualifying game. The Rugby World Rugby, IRB, much easier to say, needs to be above that, needs to be monitoring that, needs to be making sure that's all I's dotted, T's crossed. They can't wash their hands of it. And then you come down to things, so you carry on, and it's not the rulings, it's not the laws, it's the handling of it. You do not throw your employees under a bus in a public format. You don't go and say, oh, hang on, he wasn't wrong, but we're just pulling that red card. Why would you pull the red card if he wasn't wrong? Okay? So, that's sort of incidentals. But look, what they should be coming out to saying, we've got issues in our game. We need to look at that, and we will look at that. And obviously, it is highlighted from the weekend that needs to be like. You don't go and actually throw your bloody employees under a bus, though. That's just poor management.
Yeah, but first I want to come back to the thing you say about the European qualifiers. It was Rugby Europe who was responsible for reason all the mess up would come with the Spain-Belgium game and the Romania involvement. It's that at least World Rugby have learned from the lesson. So from next World Cup cycle, they will be in charge of all qualifying games that are like in any way connected to a World Rugby tournament. So they learn from a mistake, at least.
They learn from a mistake, but it's a professional sport now. That mistake like that should not have been made.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, it's still a young professional sport, so you have to give them some leeway. I mean, the first thought is good, you know. It's also in Europe, which it's not like plagued with corruptions. There are corruption in Europe, but it's not plagued with corruptions. You kind of can see where we're coming from, but they want to give the European Federation a chance to run things, and we're expecting to do it. But obviously they F up, so, but World Rugby took notice. And
they messed up, I believe is the term we're looking for. Anyway, but let's
I use F.
No.
We're not even allowed to use the F word.
I've just told someone off for swearing in the chat, so I'm cracking down on that.
They can use F in the chat.
Red card.
Yellow card. Dearie me. Yeah, yellow card. You're muted for 5 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes.
Okay, some issues here. Okay, let's talk about some practicalities around this sort of stuff then. If we say that World Rugby has to look at managed referee appointments for all of the World Cup qualifying competitions, does that mean that they only do organise refs every sort of once every 4 years for the European, once every 2 years for the European wide cup, because it's the same competition that's played every year, but only 2 years out of 4 is it used for qualifying for every World Cup. So does that mean that the European Union does reffing for 2 years and then World Rugby takes over for 2 years? That kind of mess and having this double infrastructure is all extra cost and stuff you just don't need. So you either basically say every international game is all the referees are sorted by World Rugby, which is heavily onerous, or you do delegate responsibility. Delegating responsibility is the right way to do it. But unfortunately, it's led to this problem.
Okay, here's the problem with delegating. Here's the problem with delegating authority at referee appointments, right? Is the fact is that, okay, so you've got World Rugby who are doing a referees panel who make appointments for, let's call it tier 1 fixtures, but then they don't get involved in these lower levels. It's like, well, that's actually at the lower levels where the guidance is required, not necessarily at the higher level. So you actually need to have more guidance where people are still learning and understanding what the correct protocols and processes should be. So maybe it's like if they're not going to be involved, as you say, it does get onerous, is that they still have to have an appointment that then oversees to make sure that the correct protocols and processes are followed to make sure the appointments are correct.
And I think better education of those of the unions is required rather than sort of taking it all on themselves personally. Things overly centralised generally aren't good. I think that's also part of the problem that's happened in this game. And okay, Christian goes, all games should be neutral refs. They are neutral refs at international level. Okay, so that's what you're actually referring to there, Christian and Jack, is you're talking about Super Rugby, which is a different ball game entirely. That's club rugby, and is a different thing. But anyway, I think over-centralisation is wrong. These sides, again, it's not actually World Rugby that censored that said the red card should be pulled. It's an independent disciplinary panel that said it should be pulled. Now, I think they made the wrong decision. The right decision would have been to say that being red carded and sent off was enough punishment, therefore there's no extra punishment on top, which would have been fine. But to say it wasn't a red card, therefore there's no extra punishment, I think was the wrong. Maybe it's semantics because he's already been punished, but to me that was the wrong way to go about it. Just as a side note, apparently we may be up for a €250 fine for smoking on the podcast. So I didn't realise that was actually apparently in Europe. Thankfully, we're not in Europe, but yes. So but we are broadcasting to Europe, so we'll better try and behave a bit more. So hide it off screen next time.
Smoking on podcasts.
Well, on podcasts, obviously, pure podcast, it's only audio, so they can't really tell. But on video, yes. But yeah, okay. Now, sure. On the refereeing side of things, there are some issues, there are some inconsistencies, and I guess it comes down to question 5 that we'll leave over to next week. Around, is rugby just basically a game that's designed to be designed for cheating? But some of the things that World Rugby is doing well. First up, we've seen Japan we've seen the tier 1 gap narrow with that funding and with the extra coaching that goes in those spaces. We've seen Japan beat South Africa at the Rugby World Cup. They've beaten Italy in this window. We've seen the USA beat Scotland in this window. We've seen an announcement of a professional league in South America that World Rugby is essentially funding, and that will kick off in 2020, I think it is, as well. So I think World Rugby is doing a lot of stuff structurally better in funding and setting up these competitions and raising the level and increasing the number of competitive teams globally. There is some public perception issues around refereeing, but I think outside of that, they're doing some very good work.
Yes, also I want to add, I think there's a big misconception about what World Rugby actually is and how it works among many, many rugby fans. They seem to a lot of them think that this is like some all-powerful independent organization who can do whatever they want, like as long as they have a good for the game in front of their eyes. That's not true at all. World Rugby is controlled by basically 8 nations. And we all know who those 8 nations are. Like it's a classic. And now also Argentina and Italy is allowed to sit on the table with triple votes, not only double votes, triple votes. So it's these 10 nations, they run World Rugby first and foremost for their own benefit. That's what they've always done. That's what they always do. And the most money by far is pitched out to these countries. And as long as these 10 countries think rugby works pretty fine in their own country, they're not going to be that keen on changing too many things. It's as far as you can get from a democratic organization as possible. It's like totally elites in the elite who rule in World Rugby.
Yep, and the number of seats in the council is definitely geared towards keeping the tier 1 nations having more seats than anyone else. They get 1 seat purely for being a tier 1 nation. Then everyone who makes Rugby World Cup gets a seat, and then everyone who passes some other eligibility gets a seat as well. Now, you do have to pass some eligibility rules, such as having accounts that have been audited and submitted for 3 years, I think it is, consistently. Now, the Pacific Islands, funnily enough, fail on that one, as we've seen various corruption issues. The USA hasn't been great in its administration either. So there are various. And you've got to say, do you really want to be inviting onto your council corrupt organisations? So I can see the flip side to it as well, to say, hey, do we really want to have someone who basically reports into the president of Fiji, who is a dictator, as on our rugby council, voting on how rugby goes and where funding goes? Maybe not the best. Maybe not the most the right person to be on there. So I do get that some eligibility criteria is needed, but again, the Rugby Championship and the Six Nations need to start understanding that there is a bigger game and reducing their power and, as you say, democratizing it to include nations like Japan and Georgia, who have got proper administration structures in place to be able to do that kind of stuff. Now then, I think we're running out of time for the last 2 questions, so we'll come back and talk about Argentina and their coaching structure who've resigned, and we'll also come back and talk about, is rugby really just a cheating game, next week. But looking at the international games that are coming up this next weekend, which games are you looking forward to watching the most, Herman? And Herman's gone quiet. He needs to sort his port out again.
Port again.
So, Ashwin, what game are you looking forward to this weekend?
Well, yeah, actually, to tell you the truth, there's a few, really, isn't it? Because, well, got a bit of feedback there. South Africa, England holds a bit of intrigue because it's just like what's going on with that English team. Obviously, South Africa have stepped up. They're playing some good rugby. They've got the impacts of the Willie Leroux's, the Dwayne Vermeulens, Faf at halfback. Yeah, there's some players that have come back that have added an impact. Obviously to work with the quality that they've got there. So they've lifted, but something's going on with the England squad, and yes, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. As I said, it's more intriguing to see what happens there, and obviously the decider happening in Australia and Sydney between. Well, according to you, Australia and Scotland, but I'm pretty sure that's Ireland.
Oops.
So yeah, that's the decider. That you know, as he changes it on the fly. You know, my son was saying.
No one else can see our notes, Ashwin, okay? Stop it.
No one can see the notes. But as my son was saying, with the All Blacks winning the first two tests, do they have to play the third one? He's 7. And this is like, whereas we go to Australia and this is like, hey, yeah, game on. Game number 3, all on the line. So I suppose if you're really going to plump for a game to watch, that'll be it because it's the decider of the series.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Yes. Oh, very, very good. So, no, I totally agree that Wallabies Ireland, the decider, is the highlight. Also agree with Ashford. Interesting to see what's going on in the England camp. We should probably dedicate a show alone to that because I'm so surprised how quick the wheels have come off the England Eddie Jones train, and they are coming up fast. And I was only up to after the Six Nations, I was still ready to defend Eddie Jones, but now it's getting pretty clear that there's something really, really, really wrong within the England camp because, Paul looking like me, like he's going to kill me now.
Carry it so low that the wheels will come off.
No, but for me, you're not going to go deep into it, but the penalty count tells me there is something wrong because it should be a fairly easy fix. And it's not offside penalties. And England hasn't been pinged offside one single time in South Africa, which also makes you think are they really down there to play? I mean, if you don't get pinged once for South Africa, that tells me that you're not trying hard enough to pushing that line. And finally, France, New Zealand, it wasn't what we were hoping for. Hopefully the French can. I mean, from a French perspective, they've been a little bit hard done in this story. They've got to feel like, when are we ever going to get a chance to show what we really got for 80 minutes? And they already lost the series. So, can they bring it? Do they have the energy to try to right some wrongs? It's almost get this weird. It's so funny. Sometimes I get the feeling with the All Blacks that they don't set up a team to lose, but sometimes they like to challenge some of the boys a little bit more extra than we usually do, And I have a feeling that they're not going to go out and try to destroy France this weekend. They're going to give a couple of new boys a chance, and we're probably really going to put a lot of emphasis to try the new game plan. And if it doesn't work, fine, we lose, But I think they're ready to take a scare. They could even swallow the defeat. I mean, because again, from an All Black perspective, this series, yes, it's a win, but that's probably the only positive so far that have come out of this series because we have no idea where we're All Blacks series. And comparing this to the Wallabies, yes, they have a win and a loss, but that's the kind of preparation you want ahead of a rugby championship, isn't it?
I'm not sure what you ever want. But the performances by the All Blacks.
Oh, you do. I mean, if you work with coaching, you want a loss sometime because you can't win all the time. It's impossible to start with.
You can nearly. The American basketball team do.
Extra points for you for getting that into the show just before the end, like knife into all Kiwis. Like, you're not number one. There's one team out there that's better.
So, we'll have to see. I mean, we'll discuss the All Blacks game much more in more depth tomorrow night. I'm not so sure that they will experiment, having had such a poor performance in the last game. But we'll get into that one in more depth tomorrow night in the All Blacks edition. I think you guys are both missing out on the big game of the weekend, and I think that's Japan-Georgia. Here we have a lot of people being championing Georgia as being the top tier 2 team, and they should be in the Six Nations, but they've never beaten a tier 1 team. Japan have had a couple of tier 1 scalps. People aren't really talking them up to join the Rugby Championship. And I think they've got a point to prove here to show, look, we are actually the number 1 tier 2 team that should be getting promoted. Look, we're going to put Georgia in their place. And so I think actually that Japan Georgia game is actually perhaps the one of the bigger games this weekend as well. And deadly silence.
We lost. I saw Herman's lips moving, so I thought I'd let him go, but now we can only see his lips moving. Here we go. Yeah, come on. There you go.
So one of these days,
lips moving.
One of these days, Herman, who does writing for a living, will actually buy himself a proper computer to write on.
What? Can you hear me now, man?
We can hear. Quick talk.
Yeah. No, but Georgia is coming down from Fiji. That's a long flight up to Japan. Now Japan lost to Italy. It was actually another great game this weekend between Japan and Italy. Another game that pretty much felt like a tier one game in a great full sellout stadium, 40,000 people on the roof. But still, I agree with you, Paul. Very fair point. I mean, it's surprisingly that there's not more talk about Japan should be added to the Rugby Championship. Everyone, we have to bring in the Islanders, and everyone pretty much know it's a no-go. And at the moment, probably Japan definitely is better than Samoa and Tonga, and they are probably on equal footing with Fiji, and they have all the other stuff you need to be in the Rugby Championship. It's already there. But I think the rumors I hear is for the 2021. I have one good connection who's close to the Sansar strategic plan, and they say Japan is definitely in with a good shout to be included for the 2021 Rugby Championship when the new TV deal kicks in. It makes just too much sense that's good news for All Blacks and Wallabies fans too, because this team there will be a little bit more travel, but all the games will be in the same time zone, just as in Super Rugby. So this would be great. I mean, it would be great news for Australia, New Zealand, and Japan really pick up a game and become a strong rugby nation.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to happen. I just think that the Sunwolves need to win a couple more games this season first before because at the moment they're just not competitive.
They are. Come on, Paul. That's not. Now I have to strongly disagree with you on this one. I mean, they have 3 more games this season, and if they just win 1 more, that's a better season. It's an improvement. I back him. They're going to win 1 or 2 of these games we have still left. The Japan national team look really good, and next season is set up even better for them to perform in Super Rugby with a longer break between the top league and the Super Rugby league, and they have the same coach. I think there's a lot of things going for Japan right now. So I think they're moving definitely in the right direction. And they have, as you mentioned too, you have the other scouts you forgot to mention is they not scout, but 2016 they lost to Wales on a last minute drop goal in Cardiff. Not bad. And this November they should have beat France away. They missed like an easy conversion in the end and draw the game instead. So all these scouts that Georgia wish they have, Japan already have them.
No, I agree.
The match of 2015 Rugby World Cup, Japan, South Africa.
Yeah, I mean that's a mother of all scouts. Funny thing, this is a little bit. You know that the Japan Rugby Football Union have invited Springboks for a game in Tokyo every year since World Cup, but Springboks always declined it. It's good money on the table, but they still don't want to do it. Not yet. Springboks want to be 100% sure we're going to smash them before we play them again.
Now, I think what I was trying to say was the reason I think there's the clamour to get them in is the way that is because of how the Sunwolves have been the bottom team in Super Rugby. They've won 2 this season, but at one point it looked like they were going to go winless this season. I don't think they'll get another victory this season personally. I know what they've got the Bulls in Singapore. They're down in Canberra, and I can't remember where their last game is now. But so what we really need to see to cause a clamour is if they were to do what the Jaguares have done and win 5 or 6 games in a season, then I think you'd suddenly find the clamour would be there to get them in the Rugby Championship. But I think one of the things that's dampening it has been that, whereas Georgia, they don't have a team in any competition to show you quite that they aren't at that level. And so I think that's part of it. Also, there are rumours, and these are rumours. I don't know how substantiated these could be, but there are rumours of that some of the some of the oligarchs' money that goes towards the Georgia rugby. Some of that also goes towards some journalists to write nice articles about Georgia as well, which helps obviously fuel the fire. Boys, thank you very much. We've run out of time. Ashwin's just shaking his head, going, "Paul has just bankrupt himself with legal fees." Ashwin, as this is possibly our last ever show, as we get fined for smoking, I get taken to court for legal defamation and all that kind of stuff.
Or mobsters coming knocking on your door, just saying that as like, I don't want to freak you out or anything, you know.
It's a fug life of rugby podding.
It has been great doing this show from Rotorua tonight.
I see what you did there.
Ashwin, why don't you let people know where they can get in touch with you during the week?
You can find me at NZFetso on Twitter, and I'll see you there.
And if you want to catch me the next couple of days, you go to an Irish pub in Chiang Mai, especially on Saturday. I will be watching both the All Blacks and the Wallabies before I kick into World Cup soccer gear.
I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. At DrivingMaul on Twitter. Always up for good rugby chat. So do comments down below. Click on the like, do subscribe, and all of that kind of lovely stuff. Jack, you clearly didn't get the joke about Rotorua, but hey, maybe next time. Cheers, guys, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching this weekend.